Hey everybody, Jason Steffenhagen here, Associate Minister at The Well, and I am excited to have with me Tami, who you all know and love, our Communications Director, because we are continuing a series that was started a while ago, but we are going to be bringing it to the podcast format as well as online on our YouTube and Facebook feeds. And so, Tami, tell us a little bit about Virtual Voices.
Thanks, Jason. Virtual Voices came about last year right after the pandemic started and we were all in lockdown. And come about April or May, and when I say we, Lindsay and I, we're trying to figure out how can we hear from people. We want to know what people are feeling. We want to know what's going on in their lives, how they're affected with the pandemic. You know, we were 2 months into this, and since we couldn't be at church, it was like, oh, well, what's everybody doing? How are we surviving this? And so we came up with this concept that we would interview people from the Well to see how it's impacting their life, their faith, and go from there and just kind of check in. So that's where Virtual Voices started.
For sure. And so now that we are still in the midst of the pandemic, but we're moving through it, people are getting vaccinated, things are starting to open up a little bit, kids are going back to school, all the kind of things are starting to happen. People are back in person worshiping on a limited basis, but we're still getting there. So how do you see the way that the Virtual Voices started and the future of what we're going to be doing in this series?
Yeah, so I think right now, this year would probably be a transitional Virtual Voices. We'll kind of do some interviews with people from the Well. We stemmed out a little bit last fall with people organizations that we were benefiting, like Good in the Hood. We had done a one thing for that. And so we got to interview the founder of Good in the Hood, and that was part of the Virtual Voices. And now I think a great transition would be to start interviewing people as to how your faith was tested in the last year during the pandemic, how you experienced it, how everything went for you, whether you were completely isolated, whether you were an essential worker, whether you had kids learning from home. And as we go through this next year, through into the fall, when hopefully we can open all back up into the Well and welcome everybody back in, we'll have a transitional period. And from there, what I think the future of the Virtual Voices is going to be just hearing from members at the Well and people who want to talk about their faith, how they are going on their journey, and make it more of a conversational podcast, just getting to know everybody that we know in our Well community.
Oh, I love it. I love at Bethel, we used to have this thing called Testify, and students would come and share their testimonies. And, you know, it's a little bit like that, right? I mean, we have this idea of really just having a conversation, hear about someone's life and what they got going on right now, but then also how they get to that point in their life. And, you know, what have been some of those significant moments along the journey for them that have really shaped them. And I think the part that really resonates for me is I just love hearing people's stories. I love hearing how they got to be who they are. What were those big pivotal moments in their life that really created some hardship or tension, and how did God get them through that? And, you know, who along their journey impacted them, you know, who are some significant people in their life. I think all of those are just inspiring to hear about. So Tami, as the person that will be hosting this, tell me why it's personal to you. Why are you interested in this?
Well, it's kind of interesting. I don't mind connecting with people, figuring out their stories, just like you said. My story particular was kind of interesting. I left the church just after high school because I just didn't feel connected to the church that I was going to. And the funny part of my story is that it was part of my repentance during Lent to go back to like a ministry at college. I lived with a couple friends who were in it, and they're like, come on. And I was like, all right, as part of Lent, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to sacrifice by going back to church. And then it was like, oh, I really enjoy, you know, this ministry connection, being together. And that was kind of set me back on my faith journey. So it's really interesting to see. It's almost like I just heard something about the butterfly effect, where those little tiny things lead you to bigger things. Mm-hmm. And here I am now, a communications director at a church, trying to make a difference in how people view our faith and et cetera, stuff like that. So this is kind of a personal, just kind of really interesting way, like you said, to look into people's lives and what led them to where they are right now.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So how often can people plan or expect to see these virtual voices conversations?
We're hoping that it can be a weekly thing. We are just starting off, and so as we get our footing with virtual voices, this started out as a weekly thing, and we'd really love to have people from the well join us and connect with us so that we can get to be part of a more close knit community that invites people into the well.
Awesome. Well, Tammy, I can't wait to see who we get to talk to and how those conversations go, because I know it's going to be inspiring and encouraging and thought provoking to learn from others. So thanks for taking the lead on this and diving in. Look forward to seeing what happens.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jason. Me too.